Birch is the name of the towering mountain range in the northern regions of the continent. At a height of 300 meters, it's not just a natural wonder, but the home of powerful mages called elders. This is the place where all the schools of sorcery across the continent send their magical ideas to be judged. The magic tower stands tall here, and the decisions made there are so influential that even the floating island of mages must follow them. Birch holds so much power that it could be considered the backbone of the magic world, because the summoning assembly only happens once every several decades, and a mage chosen to attend is seen as highly honored. It's a recognition of their standing as a sorcerer of renown. Yet, being summoned by Birch comes with a deadly reputation. It is often called the Mage's Grave. Meanwhile, Julie is at the train station with the Knights of her Freen Association. She turns to her vice captain to confirm the preparations are in order. The vice captain reassures her with a confident tone, assuring her that everything is set and that the person they were waiting for is almost there. Suddenly, Julie notices Deculein approaching, his assistant, Alan, following him. Alan can't help but stare at the thick snow covering the ground, clearly surprised by how far north they are. He's fascinated by the cold, as if he's never seen snow before. Julie steps forward to greet them, expressing her gratitude for their arrival. She explains that from this point onward, the Freen Association will be responsible for guarding half of the train and that they'll ensure the safety and comfort of everyone traveling. Right at this moment, a flashback hits Julie, sending her into full-on freak-out mode. She recalls Deculein telling her to try smiling at least once a month for him. Panic sets in as she wonders if this is the right time to show off a big smile, and if so, how should she smile? Should it be a bright, confident one or just a small, polite gesture? She wonders, what's the point of this ridiculous stunt anyway? Behind Julie, the vice captain notices her trembling. He sees how she is struggling. Despite everything, she is pushing herself, doing everything she can for Deculein, the very person she hates with all her being. The vice captain feels a sense of respect for her. He truly admires her dedication. He decides to take charge of the situation and is about to speak, but before he could utter a word, Viren steps forward and introduces himself. He mentions that he is the designated escort this time, and that the two individuals standing with him are here only to pay their respects after entrusting him with this responsibility. The vice captain responds with a chuckle, patting Viren on the back a few times. He tells everyone that Viren is exceptionally talented and well recognized by their association. They need not worry about him. Deculein, however, doesn't seem as easily impressed. From where he stands, he watches the exchange closely, his expression showing little emotion. He raises an eyebrow, wondering about this Viren. There's nothing extraordinary about him, no special energy or aura that stands out. Deculein decides to take a moment to assess him using his skill, but he feels nothing of significance. Still, he wonders if he's overthinking things. Viren, on the other hand, remains completely unaware of the scrutiny from Deculein. He continues speaking casually, explaining that most mages are accompanied by an escort, so there is one assigned per cabin. Viren lets them know that he will be in charge of the car that he will be in. Deculein gives a slight nod. He knows that he can count on Viren. There's a lingering doubt in his mind. Even if Viren seems harmless, there's something about him that doesn't sit right. On the other hand, Julie finishes her task and prepares to leave. She tells herself that her job here is done and wishes everyone a safe journey. Without hesitation, she turns around and walks away, the vice captain beside her. However, just as she starts walking, something clicks. She suddenly stops, then turns back and smiles. It looks forced but cute. She turns bright red from the awkwardness. Deculein, who has been watching, notices her struggle. He quietly chuckles to himself, acknowledging that she kept her word, even though it's clear she's uncomfortable. The hours pass by quickly, and inside the carriage, Deculein notices his assistant, Alan, looking completely drained. The exhaustion is written all over his face, and Deculein, noticing this, suggests he rest. He tells Alan that there's no need to stay awake, as they still have a few more hours of travel ahead. Alan, too tired to argue, agrees without resistance. He says he'll take a short nap and leans back in his seat, quickly drifting off to sleep. Meanwhile, Deculein stays awake, lost in his thoughts about the upcoming meeting summoned by Birch. The summons from Birch is not just any invitation. It's known as the Mage's Graveyard for a very specific reason. Birch may be seen as the pillar of the magical world, but the grand assembly it hosts has an entirely different, darker side. Whenever the assembly is held, strange and dangerous events unfold, making it a place of peril. One of the greatest threats is the frequent attacks on the trains, and making it through this event without harm is no easy task. Deculein recalls that it was one of the many reasons the original Deculein died. It was a game of intelligence. It involved predicting which train routes would be safe on the journey to Birch. Those who wanted to minimize the risks had to rely on underground sources, purchasing information about which train was most likely to be attacked. The original Deculein would have certainly used this method, but now things are different. Since taking over Deculein's body, he's cut all ties with the underground organizations. This leaves him to rely on his own preparations. Before the journey, he made sure to prepare countermeasures to ensure his safety, one of which involved mastering the legendary Estring combat technique through his comprehension skill. Deculein looks over at Alan, who is deeply asleep, completely unaware of the world around him. It's almost hard to believe, considering how excited Alan had been just a short while ago. The difference is stark. He had been fidgeting and restless, unable to hide his excitement, but now all of that energy seems to have disappeared. Deculein can't help but think back to a few days ago when he asked Alan if he wanted to come to Birch with him. At the time, Deculein had been honest, warning Alan that this journey would be dangerous. He made it clear that Alan could easily refuse if he wanted to. It had been a simple offer, but Alan's response had been completely unexpected. The moment the offer was made, Alan's eyes had widened in disbelief, and he had immediately been overwhelmed with emotion. It was as if the chance to accompany Deculein on this journey was more than he could handle. Tears had flowed from his eyes. Now, back in the present, Deculein reflects on how strange it is that Alan agreed to come along at all. He hadn't expected Alan to accept such a dangerous offer. It seems that Alan has more ambition than Deculein had given him credit for. For someone who had appeared so easily overwhelmed, Alan's decision to stay by Deculein's side through this perilous journey is surprising. The train continues on, and after a short stop at another station to let off some passengers, Deculein stares out the window, lost in thought. The final stop is approaching, and only Birch remains. Nothing significant has happened yet. So far, the journey has been uneventful, and Deculein finds himself questioning whether all his preparation was unnecessary. He had taken every step to ensure his safety, planning for every possible threat, yet nothing is happening. The calmness feels almost unnatural. Before the journey began, Deculein had taken careful precautions. He used his Midas touch on the clothing of a renowned master, enhancing its defensive properties. The skill wasn't just for show. He reinforced various steelwood fragments and scattered them strategically throughout the train car. He didn't stop there. Even Alan's clothing had been enchanted, ensuring that his assistant wouldn't be caught off guard. Thinking back on his actions, Deculein realizes. Recently, he had been relying on his mid-touch skill far too often. His mana reserves are starting to run low, and the thought crosses his mind that he might have overused it. He wonders, should he have saved it for something more important? He sighs to himself, feeling a slight sense of regret. Preparing is essential, but it would be better if nothing happened at all. It's always best when things go smoothly, without any surprises. No sooner does he think this than the world shifts. The train crosses over a massive stone bridge, and suddenly, there's a massive explosion. The blast shakes the train, shattering the silence with a deafening boom. The calm, uneventful journey he hoped for is gone in an instant, replaced by chaos. A few days earlier, before Deculein even set foot on the train to Birch, another journey had already begun. This one involved Sylvia and her father Gildan. Inside their luxury train car, her father sighs, shaking his head as he watches his daughter. He can't help but comment on her inability to put her books down, even during the journey. Sylvia remains deeply focused. She tells her father she is just doing some exercises. The professor had assigned a heavy workload, and she intends to finish it. Her father chuckles and offers some advice. He teases her about how diligent she is, even though she is destined to become a grand mage. Sylvia, however, doesn't share the same light-hearted attitude. She responds calmly, but her words hint at a deeper frustration. If she can't handle these small tasks, how could she ever hope to reach the level of grand mage? She reflects that honestly, she is not even worried about Ephraim, but she wanted to listen to more of Deculeir's lectures. She then raises her head and asks her father why they left for Birch's summoning assembly so early. She thought they could have waited a few more days before making the journey. For a moment, her father remained silent. Finally, he speaks in a calm voice, explaining something that catches Sylvia off guard. He asks if she's ever heard that the journey to Birch is known as a graveyard for mages. Sylvia blinks, surprised. She thought it was just some ghost story meant to scare people. Her father shakes his head slowly. He tells her that it's no mere tale. Every time the convocation is held, mages die. 15 years ago, 11 mages lost their lives. He continues explaining how for generations being summoned to Birch has been a mark of great prestige. If a family is chosen as one of the 20 great houses, their name becomes etched in history. But there's a dark side. Those who fail to attend the convocation are erased from that list forever, and the vacant spots left by those who don't attend will always be filled by other families. Sylvia begins to understand the implications. She quickly grasps the meaning behind her father's words. Families outside the 20 great houses often seek to eliminate those attending the convocation, hoping to take their place. Still, she finds it hard to believe that such a thing could happen. She shakes her head, reluctant to accept the reality her father is describing. But before she can say more, her father confirms what she fears. It's exactly as she thinks. The journey to Birch is like walking on thin ice. Families that hunger for prestige will often do anything to claim it, even if it means sacrificing others. He then reveals the reason they had left so hastily. He had received intelligence about a planned attack on the train that would depart after theirs. Wanting to protect Sylvia, he had decided to be as cautious as possible. However, if this information leaks, it will cause serious problems, putting everyone at risk. He pauses for a moment, contemplating whether to share the full truth with Sylvia. He knows that sooner or later, she will have to face the harsh realities of the world they live in. With a deep sigh, he decides to continue. He asks her if she believes that any of the 12 traditional families have truly secured their position forever. His voice carries the weight of experience, a hard truth that only someone like him could understand. He tells Sylvia that if anyone must face consequences for the dangerous game of politics, it should be all mages. The deaths that will happen along this journey are a part of the magical selection process. Meanwhile, the explosion from the train carts everyone into action. Deculein and Varen immediately become alert, their instincts kicking in. Deculein focuses on his mental force, activating his powers. In an instant, a nearby window shatters from the shockwave. The explosion is powerful enough to rouse Alan from his sleep. Groggy and disoriented, Alan struggles to process what's happening. His eyes widen as he takes in the chaotic scene, disbelief clear on his face. He stammers, pointing outside with shaking hands. He can hardly believe what he's seeing. The entire train is floating in midair. Deculein, still focused on the situation, lets out a quiet sigh of relief. His countermeasures are working. Estrin's martial arts played a part in this, but it's the elementary psychokinesis he remembered before leaving that really saved them. The relief is brief, as he knows they're not out of danger yet. On top of the train, the assassins who had been trying to attack are now in complete shock. They can hardly believe their eyes. The entire train is floating, defying all expectations. One assassin, clearly stunned, mutters about how extraordinary high-ranking professors are. In response, another assassin growls, reminding them that this is just the beginning. They need to stay focused. There's still a chance to complete the mission. With a sense of determination, they drop a rope down and use it to swing into the train car where Deculein is sitting. Without hesitation, they kick through the windows, shattering the glass into countless shards that scatter in all directions. Deculein had been expecting the attack. He had prepared for this moment, knowing the intruders would come, and when they finally make their appearance, he doesn't flinch. Instead, he speaks with a cold, cutting tone. He calls them fools. He tells them that it is too bad for them that he has already seen it coming. Without wasting any more time, Deculein uses his psychokinesis with precision, hurling shattered steel fragments and splintered wood toward the assassins. The deadly projectiles fly toward them like a barrage of bullets. The intruders barely manage to step into the train car before they're torn apart, overwhelmed by the sharp, flying debris. Their bodies are shredded like a beehive under attack, disintegrating in a chaotic storm of steel and wood. The gruesome scene unfolds quickly, leaving no room for the assassins to react. Beside him, Alan stands frozen in shock. He's unable to process the brutal scene in front of him. His voice shakes as he tries to make sense of what's happening. Deculein glances at Alan, and then without hesitation, he swiftly knocks Alan out with a chop to the back of the neck. Alan falls unconscious in an instant, collapsing without a sound. Deculein murmurs quietly to him, telling him to get some rest, before turning his attention to Varen. Deculein instructs him to take the kids somewhere safe, then evacuate the other passengers in the other compartments if necessary. Varen immediately acts, carrying Alan out of the train car with urgency, his movements swift and practiced. Deculein watches Varen disappear with Alan. His mind lingers for a moment. He thinks about the softness of Alan's nape. It had been surprisingly soft. The steel body trait that enhances his senses had made him feel the difference, but he quickly pushes the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. Turning back to face the remaining assassins, Deculein locks eyes with them. There's no more need for words. He knows they understand the inevitable end they've brought upon themselves. He tells them that their deaths will be nothing more than natural disaster, a consequence of their choices. With those words, his mana erupts from his body like a violent surge of energy. The air thickens with an overwhelming pressure that makes the assassins' hair stand on end. A sense of doom washes over them, an instinctive feeling that their time is running out. Meanwhile, Varen has placed Alan carefully against a boulder below, away from the immediate danger. He looks up at the floating train, still hovering in midair, and furrows his brows. He cannot believe it. No one could tell what he was thinking. Time passes quickly. Back inside the train car, the once pristine floor is now littered with the lifeless bodies of the assassins. Pools of blood spread across space, soaking into the fabric of the train. Not a single assassin is left breathing. The battle is over, but it's clear that Deculein has paid a heavy price. Exhausted, he slumps against a seat, trying to catch his breath. The fight took more out of him than he had expected. He had been forced to reduce the damage from the explosion while fighting off the attackers, and that combined effort drained his mana completely. Deculein looks down at his trembling hands. His current mana reserves are dangerously low, barely at 10 points. He knows he has little strength left, and the exhaustion weighed heavily on him. Shortly after, Varen returns to the train car, looking a little more composed than before. He reports that he has safely evacuated all the remaining passengers. Deculein nods in approval, acknowledging the swordsman's efficiency. He's about to say something more, but before he can finish, something about Varen catches his attention. His eyes flicker with surprise as he notices the subtle change in Varen's expression. It's different from before. For a moment, Deculein tells himself that it must be the shock from the attack. After all, he himself was shaken by what happened, so it's only natural that Varen would feel the same way. But then, Deculein sees it. A red aura begins to rise from Varen's body, unmistakable in its significance. It's the mark of death, a sign that this is a villain's fate. Deculein realizes the truth. Varen has been hiding his true nature all along. He had been standing right by his side, concealing his intentions, and Deculein had been too careless to notice. The moment of realization hits him hard. Before him, Varen no longer bothers to mask his true intentions. He unsheaths his sword and aims it directly at Deculein. Varen tells Deculein he is relieved that Deculein survived because now Varen is going to kill him with his own hands. Just then, Deculein stands up. Sylvia watches, frozen in place, as she sees streaks of tears still visible at the corner of his eyes. Her expression turns blank in shock. Deculein, the man who had always seemed cold and unfeeling, had shed tears. The sight was breathtaking for Sylvia. She had always thought of him as an annoying professor, someone who acted superior and indifferent to everything. But now, standing before her, he appeared different. He too had suffered a loss, and the tears on his face were like shooting stars, fleeting but unforgettable. Those tears stayed with Sylvia, lingering in her mind long after the moment had passed. Her heartbeat quickens just a little as she recalls the sight of his vulnerability. Then she recalls the words from her father. He had warned her that a group was planning to attack the next train. This memory has left her with slight unease. How bothersome, she thinks. Ever since Deculein's lecture that day, a certain feeling has been nagging at her. There's something she wants to try. She wonders if it's possible. She wonders if using this mana stone will make it work. Magic is built on the fusion of the three fundamental properties of original magic, each created through primordial spells and their transformations. Sylvia's ability allows her to shape and transform mana stones into anything she desires. Now, holding the mana stone in her hand, she begins to channel the mana within her body. The stone begins to glow with a dazzling light, radiating energy. Streams of energy pour out from the stone, gradually converging together, shaping something. Slowly but surely, the shape of a small dove begins to form. Sylvia watches in awe as the tiny bird takes shape. A sense of excitement fills her as she realizes that she has succeeded. She smiles softly and names the bird Swift. She then gently presses her forehead against the bird's head, silently transmitting something to it, a connection that passes between them. Once done, she softly tosses the dove into the air, watching as it flutters. She whispers to it, "Fly, fly away and show me what you see." The bird takes off, soaring into the sky, carrying her wishes with it. The train hasn't fallen completely into the abyss. Part of its body remains wedged against the mountainside, hanging on by a thread. Inside the carriage, Deculein's face twists in pain. The train barely managed to hold on, avoiding a full collapse, but the damage is clear. He feels the sharp in his body. His bones are probably broken, but he knows he'll recover soon enough thanks to his iron body trait. Still, the pain is intense. Just as he finishes the thought, a sword comes flying toward him. With his enhanced senses, Deculein notices it just in time. He quickly tilts his head to dodge the strike, narrowly avoiding it. Without hesitation, he swings his arm, sending a shard of steel wood hurtling toward Varan. But the strike never reaches its target. A faint red aura surrounds Varan, repelling the attack effortlessly. Deculein mutters to himself, recognizing the aura for what it is, the aura of protection. On the other side, Varan can't help but admire Deculein's resilience. He acknowledges him with a simple remark, calling him a tough bastard. Varan then envelops his sword in a stronger aura, preparing for the next move. With terrifying speed and power, he lunges forward, executing a powerful horizontal slash aimed straight at Deculein. Deculein struggles to maintain control over the floating steelwood fragments around him. Still, he somehow uses them to block his relentless assault. Varan's strikes are unbelievably fast and strong. Sweat begins to drip down Deculein's face as he fights to keep up. Varan is stronger, much stronger than Deculein. Even if he were at full strength, he knows he wouldn't be able to defeat him. But Deculein will never collapse in moments like this. He has the unyielding trait, one that refuses to break even when his body is shattered. His spirit remains steadfast, no matter what the circumstances. This trait activates in the heat of battle, allowing him to maintain his mental fortitude, regardless of the pain or exhaustion. His mind stays nearly untouched by external influences, focused entirely on the fight ahead. On the other side, Varan continues his relentless assault. The steelwood fragments that Deculein has been using to defend himself are beginning to show their limits. After enduring numerous strikes, they finally start to shatter, breaking apart under pressure. Deculein watches this happen, his lips curling into a faint chuckle. He can't help but wonder, if that sword strikes him down, will the game end? Will everything he's experienced just disappear, like a dream? And will he wake up in his office again, untouched by the battle? He wonders, if not, what will happen next. In that moment, a spray of fresh blood scatters through the air. Outside the train, the bird of Sylvia flies. Varan attacks. Deculein is cornered. The sword closes in, just inches from his face. Deculein knows this might be the end. He braces himself for it, accepting the possibility. But suddenly, the atmosphere inside the train shifts. The air begins to distort, as though the very fabric of space is being twisted. Deculein's eyes widen in shock as he realizes what's happening. A spatial fluctuation. Before he can fully process it, he watches, stunned, as a streak of blood appears on Varan's wrist. It seems to come from nowhere, a force unseen by the human eye. Varan's entire hand is severed from his arm, falling backward in a gruesome display. The pain is so intense that even Varan, a hardened knight, can't suppress a scream. Deculein seizes the moment, knowing this is his chance. He doesn't know what just happened, but he knows he can't waste it. Using the last remnants of his mana, he manipulates a rusty steel fragment, driving it straight into Varan's right ankle. Varan recoils in pain, but Deculein isn't finished. He swings his leg and lands a powerful kick to Varan's left shin. The force of the kick sends Varan staggering backward. His balance shatters, and he crashes into several seats before tumbling through the gaping hole in the train's body. Despite the chaos, Varan's instincts are razor sharp. In a split second, he draws a dagger and plunges it into the train floor, halting his fall just in time. Deculein approaches calmly, standing over him with an icy gaze. Varan, still seething with rage, glares up at him, frustration clearly visible on his face. He demands to know what Deculein just did to him. Deculein shakes his head slightly, an unreadable expression on his face. He exhales slowly and tells Varan that he has no idea. Then he wonders aloud. Why is Varan so determined to kill him, as he doesn't recall any personal grudge between them? Varan scoffs, his anger bubbles to the surface. He can't help but express his disbelief. He tells Deculein that he remembers every crime that Deculein committed against his master Julie. At that moment, Deculein finally realizes the truth about Veron. He's nothing but a blindly devoted servant, loyal to the point of madness. Deculein calmly challenges his reasoning and asks if he truly believes all of this is for the sake of Julie, considering she never asked him to take such drastic actions. He presses him further, asking what Julie is to him, to make him go this far. Veron's expression hardens, growing cold and distant. He doesn't respond immediately as his mind drifts back to the past. A memory surfaces vivid and raw, filling his thoughts. In it, Julie is standing before a small group of people, composed and poised as always. Across from her, a woman speaks with deep gratitude. She thanks Julie for everything she's done, claiming that without her, things would have turned out terribly. Julie bows slightly, acknowledging the thanks with the grace of a knight doing her duty. A few steps away, a young Veron is struggling in the grasp of two adults. He is trying to break free. He denies doing anything wrong, insisting that the other person started it. The woman shoots him a look of disgust. Her words are sharp and filled with scorn. She accuses Veron of wrongdoing, claiming that there is no way her son, Jason, could have started anything. She immediately places the blame on Veron. Behind her, a smug-looking boy with a bruised eye sneers, clearly enjoying the situation. Veron's anger rises to a boiling point. He wants to lash out, to scream at the boy for the injustice. He vows to kill him, his voice filled with rage. The woman, unfazed, curls her lips into a cold smirk. She informs Veron that she's handing him over to the police, and she adds insult to injury by suggesting he should get on his knees and beg for forgiveness. She accuses him of assaulting her son and trespassing. Julie, who has been observing the scene silently, steps forward. She asks the woman to wait, questioning her accusations. The woman repeats that Veron trespassed and acted in an unworthy manner. She scoffs at him, proud of her insults. But Julie turns her attention to Veron. She studies him more closely, taking in the situation with a sharp eye. She notes that the boy scaled those tall walls, something that shouldn't have been possible for someone as small as Veron. A thought takes root in her mind. After a brief pause, she speaks again. She tells the woman that she will take Veron to the police station herself. She suggests the woman to rest while she takes care of the matter. Without another word, she leads Veron away, taking him under her protection. And as they walked, Veron thrashed in frustration, desperate to break free. His voice shook with anger and confusion. He demanded to be let go, insisting that he had done nothing wrong. He asked her why he was being taken to the police. Julie, however, stops in her tracks. Without turning around, she speaks softly yet firmly. She tells him that she believes him, at least to some extent. A flicker of hope rises in his chest. For a moment, Veron dares to believe that Julie might truly understand him. He insists that he didn't do anything wrong, but before he can say more, Julie cuts him off. She is firm, unwavering. She tells him that, despite his innocence, he still shouldn't have resorted to violence. A heavy silence settles between them. Then, Julie turns her head slightly and offers to teach him how to control himself if he chooses to follow her. There's no anger in her voice, no softness either, just determination. Veron is taken aback by her words and feels a flicker of surprise. After a brief hesitation, he asks a simple, yet telling question. He asks about food, an innocent request that reflects his desperation and need for care. It's how he first met his master. After that, he joined the Order of Knights, but he never truly fit in with the others. His childhood, his nature, nothing about him aligned with the others in the Order. The only one who ever showed him care was Julie. For Veron, being by her side was all that mattered. Julie had always been ahead of him, leading by example. She helped others, never compromising with injustice. His admiration for her only grew over time, and so did his love for her. In present, still hanging from the train, Veron says that he knows that his emotions only get in her way and his love for her could only be a burden to her. However, he reiterates that he must kill Deculein. He believes that one day, Deculein will bring ruin to his master. Veron's eyes burn with hatred as he speaks. The fire in his gaze is unmistakable. For a moment, even Deculein admits that his anger is justified. Everything bad in this game is a butterfly effect of what Deculein has done in the past. But Deculein refuses to accept that fate. He reflects that he will change what Deculein has done, and he will make sure that Deculein's ending is not one of destruction. With that thought in mind, Deculein extends his hand toward Veron. He offers his trust. He assures Veron that whatever happens next, he will not harm Julie. He hopes Veron will trust him too. No matter what, he promises to protect her. But Veron doesn't believe him. His face darkens and anger boils inside him. The crimson aura surrounding him flares up, growing more violent with each passing second. He is resolute, deaf to anything Deculein says. Even someone as patient as Deculein can no longer hold back his frustration. He demands to know if Veron is truly unwilling to change his mind. Below him, Veron remains indifferent. He makes it clear that no matter what happens, his goal is unchanged. He will kill Deculein. Deculein exhales sharply, knowing it's useless to reason with someone so blinded by his loyalty. The fool doesn't understand. The choice Veron makes today will torment July forever, but Veron's mind is set. With a growl of frustration, Deculein grips the rusted steel shard in his hand tighter and strikes directly at Veron. Meanwhile, far away, Julie suddenly jolts, a sense of unease creeping up on her as if she can feel something is wrong. The vice captain notices her reaction and watches her closely with concern. He asks if she's feeling unwell, suggesting that she might be worried about Veron. He reassures her that Veron can handle himself. Julie chuckles, but her gentle smile betrays her inner thoughts. She replies calmly that she knows, completely unaware that her loyal subordinate is plummeting through the sky, falling off the cliff. His final thoughts remain unspoken. Even when he is falling, his heart is heavy with his unrelenting loyalty to his master Julie. He says he hopes she will be happy. And just like his undying loyalty, bros will subscribe to this channel and like the video, ensuring that the efforts poured into this journey are never forgotten, never wasted. Meanwhile, the bird created by Sylvia's genius soars above the train car. Sylvia watches everything unfold through the bird's eyes. She has seen Deculein fighting against his own bodyguard. She reflects that Deculein killed the guard. However, it wasn't Deculein who initiated the fight. Varen had tried to kill him first, and in self-defense, Deculein struck back, ultimately causing him to fall. Sylvia quickly processes the situation, but before she can reflect further, a voice calls out from behind her. It's Sirius. He reminds her that the intermission is about to begin, and they should now head back. Sylvia says okay, though her mind is still preoccupied with the events unfolding. She follows the knight, but a lingering worry remains in her heart. She wonders if Deculein will make it on time. Time passes quickly. A group of law enforcement officers arrives at the scene, having received reports of the bombing on the train. Leading the investigation is the Deputy Director of the Security Bureau, Lilia Fermin. She steps out of the vehicle with a determined air, clearly unwilling to waste time. A few men approach her, stepping forward to greet her, offering their respect. Lilia, however, doesn't acknowledge the pleasantries. She gets straight to the point, asking about the explosion and the attack. An older, experienced officer responds, confirming the explosion. He mentions that incidents like this are common around the time of the Birch summit, so this is not an unusual situation. He hands her a report as he speaks. Though Lilia is already scanning it, her mind focused on the details. She asks if there have been any casualties. The officer nods, adding that there have been no injuries, but 2 individuals are missing: Varen, a bodyguard, and Professor Deculein. He gestures toward a young man, still unconscious and slumped against a rock. It's Alan, Deculein's assistant. Leah then continues her questioning, talking to witnesses and trying to piece together what happened. She speaks with a photographer and comes to know something unexpected. The photographer mentions that the train was suspended midair for a long while, and when he regained consciousness, it had already crashed. He believes that the assassin attempted a second strike. Leah furrows her brows in confusion. The notion of a train being suspended in midair seems impossible. Sensing her disbelief, the photographer quickly presents a photograph. He tells her that he had been so shocked by the scene that he had to capture it immediately. Lilia looks at the photograph, her eyes widening as she sees the impossible. The train is indeed suspended midair. She wonders if Deculein raised the entire train with magic. The sight is so incredible that Leah struggles to believe it, even though the evidence is right in front of her. She stands there, speechless, her mind trying to grasp the sheer impossibility of what she is seeing. Lifting an entire train with magic. It seems completely absurd. Suddenly, she receives a telepathic message from an unknown source. Knight Varen is dead. I don't know why, but he attempted to assassinate Deculein and ultimately failed. Senior Professor Deculein survived. The abrupt message startles Leah. She immediately turns around, scanning her surroundings for the source of the transmission, but there is no one suspicious in sight. She struggles to understand where the message came from. She focuses on each person nearby, but no one shows any sign of being involved in this strange communication. Just when she thinks she might have imagined it, someone from the crowd shouts out that someone is approaching. The figure walking toward them is unmistakable. It's Deculein. He is looking slightly disheveled, but his sharp gaze is unwavering. He walks with purpose, still processing what just happened. He can't help but think about how close he came to dying. If not for that strange event at the last moment, he would have been killed by that night. Deculein recalls how vulnerable he felt. His mind races, trying to figure out who had intervened. He wonders who saved him at the last second. Leah watches as Deculein approaches. She steps forward, relief flooding her as she sees him alive. She introduces herself and mentions that she has questions about the incident, but Deculein doesn't respond to her inquiries. Instead, he asks her what time it is, catching her off guard. Despite the oddness of it, she tells him the time, trying to remain professional and get to the heart of the situation. Deculein calculates quickly. He has 6 hours left to make it to Birch Summit. The urgency of the situation hits him. Lilia, not easily deterred, tries to continue with her questioning. She emphasizes that these are official matters, expecting Deculein to cooperate. However, Deculein is uninterested in her concerns. He cuts her off bluntly, asking if the train is the only way to reach Birch. Lilia is frustrated by his refusal to cooperate but maintains her calm. She answers him, explaining that there are other routes, including land and sea options. She tries to ask about the knight who had been with him. However, before she can finish, something strange happens. Deculein vanishes. One moment he's standing in front of her, and the next he's gone without a trace. Lilia looks around, confused and unsure of where he disappeared to, or how he managed to leave so quickly. Startled, Leah turns to the 2 men standing nearby. She asks herself if she really just saw Deculein disappear right before her eyes. He must have used acceleration magic. After all, he had just stopped the train from derailing with pure psychic force and fought off Varen, but still had enough energy left to use such high-level magic. Leah wonders just how much mana this man has. It's almost unbelievable. This was the Deculein that Lockhart had spoken of, the one with the strength and resilience to overcome impossible odds. Meanwhile, at the Birch summit, the Grand Round Table is now filled with representatives from powerful noble families, each occupying their designated spots. Sitting among the nobles, Sylvia's father, Giltheon, mutters, glancing at the clock. The time is almost 9:30, the moment when the stars align. Beside him, Sylvia is sitting anxiously. Her sharp eyes are scanning the empty seat at the table. He still hasn't arrived. She is waiting for Deculein, unsure of where he could be or what's holding him up. Behind the curtains, in a secluded corner of the summit, hidden from view by a grand velvet curtain, sits a mage draped in a dark, ominous cloak. Suddenly, his voice echoes throughout the hall, resonating with power as he speaks. He thanks everyone who has answered the call to attend the summit. Just as his words fill the air, a surge of overwhelming mana sweeps through the room, pressing down on everyone in attendance. The sheer force of it is almost suffocating, and even Sylvia winces slightly from the weight of it. This mana is unlike anything she's felt before. Sylvia immediately recognizes it. This must be Desectin, the Grand Elder of Birch, a living legend who has spent years perfecting his craft. He is the closest candidate to become an archmage, and his power is undeniable. Sylvia thinks to herself that if she ever hopes to challenge for the title of archmage, she will need to reach that level of mastery. Though no one can hear the thoughts racing through her mind, she understands the path ahead is not an easy one. Just then, the voice of Desectin rings out once more, commanding attention. He announces that the roll call will begin, and once completed, the summit will officially start. He pauses for a brief moment before calling the first name. Giltheon of the AAA-grade family, he says, and the response comes immediately. Present. Essential of the Blahan family, she responds. Here. Beaten of the Barrett family. The old bald man replies with a simple here. The process continues, and one by one the representatives of the noble families respond in turn, with each name being called and acknowledged. But when Desectin reaches the name of the Yukline family, an unsettling silence fills the room. Desectin notices that there is no one from Yukline family still here. He says the Yukline family has yet to arrive and adds that if the representative of the Yukline family does not respond by the third call of his name, they will be deemed absent, and the Yukline family will be expelled from Mage Society. A murmur of shock spreads throughout the Grand Hall. Expelled from Mage Society is a harsh punishment. This isn't something that happens often. The Yukline family was first summoned 200 years ago. A few mages seated in the hall begin to mock, voices full of derision. They claim that the outcome was already expected, given Deculein's abilities, which they say pale in comparison to those of his ancestors. The rumors about his lack of talent are well known. They laugh, adding to the scorn. For some reason, the mocking voices stir something inside Sylvia. She feels odd irritation. She wonders just how has Deculein managed to survive until now, if no one cares about him. She reflects how pitiful it all seems. The whispers continue, seeping into the air. Lily observes as the room fills with derision. She feels uncomfortable with the growing cruelty. Desectin calls. Current head of the Yukline family, Deculein. No one responds. He calls again. A current head of the Yukline family, Deculein. Again, there is no response. The air grows heavier. It feels thick with expectation and judgment. But just when Desectin is midway calling his name a third time, the grand door of the hall suddenly swings open. All eyes snap to the entrance, and there in the doorway, the silhouette of Deculein appears. Deculein steps into the grand hall, deliberate and unhurried. He brushes the snow off his coat casually, smoothing his slightly disheveled hair with an air of nonchalance. And his strong commanding voice rings out in the now hushed room. Deculein von Grahan-Yukline is here. The current head of the Yukline family has arrived. The moment Deculein enters, a brief silence falls over the meeting room. Eyes flicker between the attendees, exchanging quick, unreadable glances. No one speaks, but it's clear that they all share some unspoken understanding. Without a word, the meeting resumes, proceeding swiftly and efficiently, with no unnecessary exchanges. The first topic on the agenda is the monster that has recently emerged on Black Mountain. The room is filled with a serious atmosphere, and all eyes turn to Essential of the Buhan family. She speaks calmly. She explains that the presence of a dark demon is a grave matter. Directives must be issued to every magical faction, and collaboration with the Holy Order might be necessary. She suggests sending mages to the area to conduct thorough investigations and maintain constant surveillance. The discussion flows smoothly with no interruptions or objections. The proposal is accepted effortlessly, like a stream flowing freely through narrow rocks. Not a single family raises an objection. A short while later, a female attendant enters the room, announcing a brief break. Deculein lets out a slow, heavy exhale. His mind is swirling with exhaustion and frustration. He reflects to himself, wondering how long he has been running nonstop, barely resting even for a moment, just to make it to this meeting. And now, both his stamina and mana are completely drained. However, despite the physical and mental strain he's under, his face remains as composed and indifferent as ever. His features show no sign of the internal turmoil he's feeling. Deculein's traits and personality are terrifyingly incredible. The attendees begin to rise from their seats, and the sound of chairs scraping against the floor fills the room, adding to the sense of finality. One by one, they make their way toward the exit, ready for the break. Just as Deculein begins to turn, he hears a hurried voice call out to him. It's Alan, rushing toward him, his face flushed with concern. Sweat beads down his forehead as he approaches. Alan stammers as he reaches Deculein, clearly out of breath. He apologizes for being late, his voice filled with regret. He mentions that because of his tardiness, he wasn't allowed to participate in such an important meeting. Deculein, however, remains calm and composed. He responds with a tone that remains even and unshaken. He tells Alan not to worry about it, but inside, Deculein's gaze darkens with subtle suspicion. His thoughts race. He can no longer look at Alan with the same innocent perspective as before. Now that he knows Alan is hiding something, his mind starts to turn over the question, what is Alan's goal? His calculating eyes glint with the sharpness of a blade as he wonders what the true purpose of this assistant is. Recalling a famous line from a movie from his past life, Deculein addresses Alan. He tells him, from now on, to stand by his side. The statement is direct and carries a sense of authority. Alan, caught completely off guard, freezes in surprise. His eyes widen and he stammers, unable to process what Deculein just said. But he quickly nods, accepting the order. Inwardly, Deculein reflects on the famous saying, keep your friends close, but your enemies even closer. He knows that keeping Alan close, observing his every move, is the safest choice for now. One day, Deculein will uncover the truth about Alan's true identity, but for now he will remain in the shadows, biding his time. The break ends and everyone returns to the conference table. Their footsteps echo through the vast chamber, signaling that the meeting is about to continue. The commanding voice of Desectin resounds once more, steady and commanding. He brings up the next issue, his tone serious. The topic, how to deal with the Scarletborn sorcerers who have recently appeared. The moment Desectin mentions them, the atmosphere in the room shifts dramatically. Tension fills the air, thick and oppressive like a storm on the horizon. Deculein immediately takes note of the change. His mind sharpens. This is a sensitive matter. He knows that there is no way this discussion will end without conflict. A thunderous slam echoes through the room as Bedin of the Virud family strikes the table in a fit of rage. The sound shakes the entire room, drawing everyone's attention. Bedin growls, his fury impossible to ignore. He rants about the Scarletborn sorcerers, calling them nothing more than filthy cockroaches. He describes how they infest society, breeding in the shadows and slowly eroding the foundations of their land. His words are filled with contempt, and the room grows tense as everyone listens. Across from him, Essential the Bullen family reacts immediately. She challenges his claims. She demands proof to back up such accusations. She argues that there is no way to distinguish Scarletborn sorcerers from other human ethnicities. Her words are strong, but before she can finish, Bedin's rage drowns out her voice. He roars over her, insisting that they must find a way to identify them. He calls for the extermination of these sorcerers using the royal magic of the Mage Tower. Essential's eyes burn with fury at his words. She shoots back, her voice filled with anger. She tells Bedin to watch his language, calling him an old bastard. The tension rises with every exchange, and the room seems to grow heavier with each passing second. From his seat, Deculein remains unfazed by the heated argument. He watches the exchange with a contemplative gaze, silently observing the clash of ideas. He knew their views would collide like this. It's no surprise to him that these two are at odds, each so set in their beliefs. Bedin, unaware of Deculein's inner thoughts, continues his tirade, his voice becoming even more aggressive. He talks about how the Scarletborn sorcerers have begun recognizing each other, forming groups. He insists that there must be a leader behind them guiding their movements. Worse still, he says they have no idea what the sorcerer's ultimate goal is. At this point, Essential can no longer stay silent. She slams her fist onto the table with a loud bang and accuses Bedin of making one-sided speculations. Bedin, unwilling to back down, growls through gritted teeth. He argues that their leader is hiding in the shadows, secretly gathering more followers. He paints the picture of a growing threat that no one seems to understand. His frustration grows as he accuses everyone of not seeing the danger, asking if it doesn't disgust them. Hearing his words, the other representatives exchange glances. They nod in agreement, a silent confirmation of Bedin's claims. Sensing that he has the upper hand, Bedin raises his voice with a new sense of triumph. He reminds everyone of the tragedy 60 years ago when countless mages lost their lives because of hesitation. The room goes cold the moment those words leave his mouth. The atmosphere freezes, thick with the weight of history. A suffocating silence settles over the meeting, pressing down on everyone in the room. After what feels like an eternity, Gilthian, Sylvia's father, turns his gaze toward Deculein. He asks Deculein what his stance is, addressing him directly. He points out that everyone knows the Yukline family has long been at the forefront of exorcism, standing as the vanguard against demonic forces. Now, Gilthian wants to know where Deculein stands on this issue. Deculein remains silent for a moment. Inwardly, he reflects on the situation. He understands all too well how these kinds of conflicts unfold. From his modern-day perspective, he sees how hatred, when fueled by abandoning reason, leads only to unnecessary suffering. But beyond all the noise, Deculein knows that oppressing the Scarletborn is a mistake. He can't stop them completely, not yet, but he has to delay it for as long as possible. His mission is far greater than this conflict. Finally, Deculein speaks calmly. He acknowledges that Scarletborn were indeed enemies in ancient times. However, having read and studied the history, he understands that the conflict between them was born from a misunderstanding. Bedin scowls, his irritation clear on his face. His eyes burn with anger as he turns to Deculein, demanding to know how he can call the past a misunderstanding. His tone is sharp, filled with disbelief. Deculein meets his glare without hesitation, unwavering. He answers calmly, explaining that the Lodran witch incident 237 years ago was a tragic event rooted in false accusations. Lodran, a Scarletborn, was accused of being a witch, and that sparked widespread persecution. This incident led to the massacre of countless Scarletborn. Deculein's voice remains steady, even as he continues to explain that the Scarletborn fought back, starting a vicious cycle of bloodshed that never truly ended. He doesn't stop there. Deculein explains that the incident Bedin speaks of from 60 years ago was driven by politics. It began when a mana stone mine was discovered in Scarletorn territory, leading to further conflict. Bedin remains furious, his voice dropping to a low, guttural growl as he responds. He scoffs at Deculein's explanation, calling it laughable that someone from the Yukline family, who had seized that mine 60 years ago and slaughtered the most Scarletborn, now tries to speak about politics. His anger intensifies, and he accuses the Scarletborn of being a bloodborne race, born alongside his asthma. He believes their nature is brutal and warlike, a nature that the Yukline family, known for hunting demons, should understand better than anyone. Deculein's expression remains cold, unshaken by Bedin's outburst. His icy gaze never wavers, his words as sharp as steel. He calmly corrects Bedin, stating that the Yukline family's tradition is to hunt demons, not to commit genocide against the Scarletborn. Bedin roars in response, his voice booming throughout the chamber. He declares that the Scarletborn are demons, his words full of venom and hatred. The tension in the room grows unbearable, thick and suffocating. It's as though the air itself is about to snap, like a string stretched too tight. The entire room holds its breath, waiting for the next move. Deculein, unmoved by Bedin's anger, calmly asks if he is prepared to take responsibility for his words. His voice is quiet but heavy with meaning. Beside Deculein, Alan remains silent, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. His anxiety is palpable as he watches the confrontation unfold, his eyes darting between the two men. He knows this moment could tip the scales, and the tension surrounding them feels like it could explode at any second. Deculein's expression grows even more severe. He warns Bedin not to be so quick to label people as demons. He reminds him that the Scarletborn, like everyone else, have veins filled with the same red blood. Deculein's words hold a deep weight as he continues, pointing out that those who deny the humanity of others may, in fact, be the crueler demons themselves. Bedin's face flushes a deep shade of red, his fury bubbling to the surface. However, for the first time in their exchange, he finds himself unable to come up with a rebuttal. His anger is palpable, but it is clear that Deculein's words have struck a chord. The silence that follows hangs in the air like a heavy fog. Without further resolution, the first meeting ends. The topic is postponed until the following day, leaving the room with an unsettling sense of unfinished business. Elsewhere, Deculein speaks to his daughter, Sylvia, his tone carrying an air of regret. He tells her that it is unfortunate he must be away from her until the next meeting. His words are heavy with affection, yet there's a sense of distance between them. Sylvia, however, responds indifferently, brushing off his concern. She tells him it's just until tomorrow, reassuring him that they will see each other again soon enough. Deculein, still trying to hold on to some semblance of fatherly concern, presses on. He reminds her that according to the rules, every member of House Birch must stay in their own separate quarters. He asks if she's sure she'll be comfortable alone. Irritated, Sylvia snaps back, her voice sharp and frustrated. She insists that kids her age already have their own rooms, separate from their families. She demands he stop treating her like a child. At this, Deculein's face takes on a sorrowful expression. His words come out almost as a quiet whisper, filled with a hint of melancholy. He mutters about how his daughter no longer loves this old man. Sylvia stands there, momentarily at a loss for words. She simply stares at her father, unsure of how to respond to the sudden shift in his tone. After a brief silence, Deculein's expression changes. He breaks into a cheerful smile, his mood shifting quickly. With an air of optimism, he tells Sylvia that he will see her tomorrow. He mentions that the Birch region has an extremely high concentration of mana, which means all sorts of magical phenomena could occur at night. He reminds her to be careful and read the hotel's rules carefully. Sylvia lets out a sigh, her patience worn thin. She responds in a resigned tone, assuring him that she will be fine and that he doesn't need to worry about her. Later that night, Sylvia lies in bed, holding a piece of paper in her hand, reading through the rules. She mutters under her breath, finding the instructions exaggerated and meant to scare younger people. She shrugs it off, thinking all she needs to do is sleep normally and ignore the rest. The rules are nothing more than warnings she doesn't take seriously. The night deepens and the silence is broken when a small golden bird suddenly flutters into the room. It lands nearby, its eyes glowing faintly like twin gemstones in the dark. Sylvia notices it but doesn't pay much attention at first, dismissing it as just another strange occurrence. But something about its presence feels off, like it's watching her. Soon after, Sylvia feels a sudden, overwhelming thirst. Her throat is dry, parched as if she's walked through a desert. Slowly, she gets up and makes her way toward the table. Each step feels sluggish, her body heavy. She grabs a glass of water, and as the cool liquid slides down her throat, it brings a momentary relief. The dryness eases, but the feeling doesn't last. A creeping sense of danger fills the air, and the room grows colder, like an icy wind from some unseen abyss. From behind her, an ominous presence begins to draw closer. It feels like a dark cloud of death is slowly surrounding her, a miasma of fear wrapping around her. The very air seems thick with an oppressive, suffocating weight, the breath of death itself. Sylvia's instincts kick in, her heart racing. Her eyes widen in shock as she feels the presence bearing down on her, her body instinctively moving into a defensive stance. Every muscle in her tenses, coiling tight like a bowstring drawn back, ready to snap. Her mind races, panic flooding her. She remembers the instructions from the paper, wondering if she's done something wrong. She wonders if the room was always like this. It seems to have changed. The space around her warps, the walls and hair bending, twisting into something unfamiliar, like the very fabric of reality is being reshaped by an unseen force. Her heart porks violently in her chest as she looks around in desperation, her gaze darting from one corner to another. What once was a safe room has now become a hallway, its walls closing in on her, alive with some unspoken intent. Sylvia quickly rereads the instructions on the paper, her eyes scanning each line with growing urgency. One section stands out immediately. It clearly warns that once she has laid down to rest, she must never leave her bed before sunrise. If she breaks this rule, she risks being transported to an unpredictable location. A cold sweat begins to form on her forehead, each droplet sliding down her skin like ice. A chill runs down her spine as the full weight of the warning settles in. She understands now, if she's already in bed, leaving it before morning is not an option. That's why everything has gone wrong. A few days ago, when she stayed in the second hallway, nothing strange had happened. But now, as she connects the dots, she realizes the truth. The heads of the great families and other powerful individuals are close by, and the mana in the area has thickened, becoming more volatile. The air feels charged, swirling in unpredictable ways, making everything feel unstable. Sylvia feels foolish for not realizing sooner. She had been too arrogant and careless, thinking that staying in her room would keep her safe. But now, she understands the truth of the situation and it terrifies her. Her nerves are frayed, but she forces herself to calm down. She whispers to herself that she needs to stay composed, to remain calm. However, before she can finish that thought, a terrifying sound echoes from the corridor behind her. It's low and guttural, a growl that shakes the air around her. Heavy, deliberate footsteps follow, like the sound of a beast stalking its prey. At the same time, a suffocating fog of death begins to creep in from the darkness, chilling the very air around her. The temperature drops, and Sylvia feels the weight of it, cold fingers closing in on her, wrapping around her like a vice. Her heart races as her pupils dilate in shock. Fear explodes in her chest, spreading quickly like wildfire that's just been sparked. Something is coming. She doesn't need to think twice. With adrenaline surging through her, she turns and sprints down the hallway, pushing herself as fast as she can. She races forward, her legs pumping with all the strength she can muster. The sound of her footsteps echoing in her ears. She's not sure what's chasing her, but she knows she has no time to waste. Ahead, a staircase suddenly appears from the darkness, bathed in an airy violet glow. The strange shimmering light seems almost inviting, its soft hue beckoning her forward. For a brief moment, Sylvia's instincts scream at her to take the stairs, to run and escape whatever is lurking behind her. But then, a chilling memory resurfaces, slamming into her like a cold wave. The Rosary Hotel is a single-story building. There are no stairs, and according to the guidelines, if stairs appear, she should never take them. Not under any circumstances. Her heart pounds violently, her chest tightening with fear. She clenches her teeth, pushing the urge to follow the light away. She forces herself to keep running, her feet pounding against the floor as she rushes past an open doorway. An unsettling glow spills from within the room, mixing with the spectral fog that seeps out into the corridor. It's impossible to ignore, but Sylvia knows she can't stop. Once again, the words from the instructions flash through her mind. If you encounter an open door while walking through the hallway, do not under any circumstances step inside. Sylvia shuts her eyes tightly, gritting her teeth as she sprints past the door, mentally repeating to herself that she can't panic. She remembers another door up ahead, a way out. It has to be her escape. Moments later, she reaches the door and pounds on its surface, her voice breaking with fear as she begs for help. Is anyone in there? Please help me. But as soon as she knocks, a wave of dread floods her chest. Another warning echoes in her mind: if someone knocks on your door at night, do not respond or make a single sound. The thought makes her stomach churn. What if the person inside sees her as a threat? What if they refuse to help? She doesn't have a choice but to keep knocking, desperation rising within her. Please, is anyone there? I'm begging you. Seconds stretch on, each one feeling like an eternity. Her hands tremble, her body shuddering with the weight of her fear. Tears blur her vision, the hopelessness threatening to swallow her whole. Just as she's about to give in to despair, the door creaks open. A warm light spills from inside, illuminating her pale, fear-stricken face. And then, a calm, familiar voice speaks her name, asking her why she's out wandering so later. It's Deculein. Deculein is standing at the doorway. His expressions are serene and unbothered, like the still surface of an undisturbed lake. Seeing him, Sylvia feels a small part of the terror in her chest unravel. Yet, her wide eyes remain filled with unshed tears, their glistening droplets clinging to her lashes. The sight of Deculein, calm and collected, brings a sense of relief, but she still trembles, the fear not fully gone. He quietly tells her to come inside, his voice steady. Sylvia hesitates for only a moment before stepping forward, her body moving as if it has its own will. Her voice barely escapes, barely a whisper. Thank you. Soon, the fireplace crackles to life, filling the room with a soothing warmth. The heat seeps into her cold, trembling body, slowly helping her calm down. Sylvia exhales shakily, the tension easing bit by bit, though the fear is still fresh in her chest. She murmurs, I'm sorry for disturbing you. I made a mistake. I got out of bed in the middle of the night and ended up being randomly transported into the hallway. Deculein doesn't show any sign of anger or frustration. He remains unbothered, his calmness almost unnerving. Instead of chastising her, he speaks in his usual even tone. He explains that chaotic magical phenomena are common in Birch. Wandering spirits, long stripped of rational thought, haunt the corridors, making the situation even more dangerous. He pauses, then adds, she read the rules more carefully, she wouldn't have ended up in such a predicament. Sylvia sits there, studying him quietly, her mind swirling with thoughts. She can't help but wonder how someone can stay so composed, so steady, as if nothing can shake him. If it is because he's experienced so much loss and pain that nothing seems to matter anymore. Perhaps that's why he opened the door to help her. Maybe he doesn't care about the rules because he's long ago accepted the chaos of the world around him. Just as Sylvia is lost in her thoughts, a chilling growl suddenly echoes from behind her. Her heart skips a beat as a slimy purple substance begins to slither from beneath the door, creeping across the floor in an unsettling, almost unnatural way. Moments later, the substance twists and contorts, morphing into a grotesque skull with hollow glowing eyes. The sight is horrifying, and before Sylvia can process what's happening, the skull lets out a blood-curdling shriek and lunges at her. Its jagged teeth flash ominously in the dim light like a predator about to strike. Sylvia freezes, her body locking in fear, unable to move or react. But just as the nightmare inches closer, Deculein speaks calmly, telling her to stay calm. He assures her that there is no need to be afraid. Before she can even process his words, two streaks of light shoot past her with blistering speed, heading straight for the dark entity. The lights are so fast, they appear almost like blurs in the air. In an instant, the streaks of light strike the spectral being, shattering it into nothingness. The terrifying apparition crumbles away into scattered ashes, leaving nothing bend. Sylvia stares in awe, her mouth slightly agape at the sight. It's only then that she realizes the streaks of light were not just any light but crystalline shards of ice, suspended midair like sharp daggers, their edges glinting in the dim light. The sheer precision of it all takes her breath away. Sylvia can't help but exclaim, impressed by what just unfolded. The wandering spirit was completely destroyed in an instant. Deculein, however, remains calm and detached. He speaks in a measured tone, dismissing the spectacle. He tells her there's nothing to be impressed about. It's merely a form of magic designed to kill. In his eyes, it's hardly worth mentioning. He pauses for a moment before adding that magic was never meant to be created for the purpose of taking lives. His words hang in the air, and for a moment Sylvia is speechless. She feels a slight flush rise to her cheeks, caught off guard by his perspective, unsure of how to respond to such a cold, yet strangely philosophical view on magic. Instead of speaking, her gaze shifts toward the crackling fire in front of her. Curiosity nudges her forward as she murmurs, wondering aloud about the source of the light. She asks if it is the flowing flame. Finally, Deculein lifts his eyes from the book he had been reading and responds yes in a measured tone. Sylvia, determined to capture his attention, unleashes a flurry of spells. Arcs of dazzling lightning flash through the air, solid iron constructs rise and fall with powerful force, gentle wooden formations twist into graceful shapes, and fierce flames, imbued with the magic of fairies, roar to life. She pours all her energy into it, hoping to impress him, but Deculein remains completely unfazed. His eyes stay fixed on his book, as though she's nothing more than a passing distraction in the background. Sylvia pouts in frustration, her efforts seemingly in vain. He doesn't even spare a single glance at my magic. She wonders if she should try something even more spectacular, something that might finally make him take notice. But before she can make up her mind, Deculein speaks, his voice calm and composed, without ever looking up from his book. He acknowledges her efforts, saying that she did well. Sylvia blinks in surprise, not expecting such a comment. Then, Deculein adds, without missing a beat, that her wind-based magic circle was unstable when she integrated into her fire spell. His remark takes Sylvia off guard. She quickly asks him to explain, eager to understand what went wrong, but Deculein's response remains indifferent. He tells her that figuring it out is something she should do on her own. His casual dismissal stings and Sylvia bristles in frustration. She argues, her voice tinged with annoyance. She points out that he had given Ephraim detailed guidance on these things. Deculein, still engrossed in his book, remains cool and unbothered. He responds, saying that Ephraim figured it out herself, and that he hadn't taught her. Sylvia bites her lip, her frustration rising. She's sensing her patience wearing thin, but Deculein seems unfazed by her growing impatience. Sensing her mounting frustration, Deculein finally adds, his tone softening slightly. He tells her that she must rid herself of her impatience and impulsiveness. He reminds her that she is still young, with plenty of time to grow. As long as she keeps pushing forward, she will eventually reach her goals. He pauses, his eyes lifting from the book for the first time in what feels like ages, and tells her to take slow but steady steps. He closes the book with a deliberate motion and looks directly at Sylvia. Then Deculein surprises her with a compliment, something she hadn't expected. He tells her that she is one of the 3 most promising and talented young mages in the world. Sylvia's eyes widen in disbelief. She wonders if this is how Professor Deculein sees her. A sense of pride swells in her chest, mingling with a rush of emotions. She wasn't expecting such recognition from Deculein, but somehow it feels like a step forward. Sylvia recalls the words people have always used to describe her since childhood, the constant praise that followed her every achievement. Oh my, what a genius. This girl will undoubtedly become a grand mage. For someone so young to wield such power, her future must be incredibly bright. These words were spoken to her time and time again, so often that they had become meaningless pleasantries. She had grown numb to them. They lost their weight, their significance. But Deculein's words were different. His praise wasn't empty or casual. It pierced through her like a sharp blade, striking deep into her heart. For the first time, someone saw more than just her talent. They recognized her potential in a way no one ever had before. Soon, Sylvia, exhausted from the day's events, is given the bed to rest. She falls into a peaceful sleep, her body finally finding some respite. Meanwhile, Deculein continues his quiet reading. His eyes move swiftly across the lines of text, the flickering firelight casting shadows across the pages. But then, something catches his attention, a faint, peculiar surge of energy. His senses sharpen, and he turns his gaze toward the source, a growing sense of curiosity stirring within him. He thinks to himself, this energy. Could it be? Not long after, Deculein finds himself walking steadily through a dense forest. The trees seem to close in on him as he moves through the underbrush, the path illuminated by the pale light of the moon. He reflects on the unexpected turn of events. The forest feels different tonight. There's a sudden sense of anticipation in the air, a hint of something rare. He notes that, typically he would have reached this mountain path much later if it weren't for the Birch Council meeting. This earlier arrival, however, might work to his advantage. There's a chance he could find something more valuable than he expected, something that could turn the course of his plans. Just then, from behind Deculein, a ghostly figure steps out of the shadows. Its form is unclear, shifting and distorted, but the malice it radiates is unmistakable. The atmosphere grows heavier, thick with the dark energy surrounding it. The ghost lets out a chilling wail, rushing toward Deculein with grotesque hands stretched out, clearly trying to intimidate him. But Deculein doesn't even flinch. He continues walking forward, his steps steady and calm. His focus remains on the path ahead, completely ignoring the ghost's attempts to grab his attention. The ghost hesitates, confusion sweeping over it. It doesn't understand why Deculein isn't reacting. Could this human truly be unaffected by its presence? Determined to succeed, the ghost tries again, its frustration rising. It grows deeply, flailing its arms and shrieking, hoping to provoke fear. Yet, Deculein remains completely unshaken, his composure as strong as ever. The ghost's efforts are useless, like trying to break a stone with water. No matter how hard it tries, it can't make Deculein flinch. Time passes, and Deculein continues walking, indifferent to the spirit's attempts. He doesn't even acknowledge its existence, his steps measured and deliberate. Eventually, Deculein reaches a point where he stops, having found nothing of interest in the area. His sudden halt shocks the ghost, which instinctively takes a step back, unnerved by Deculein's calmness. Then Deculein slowly turns to face the ghost, his voice calm and almost bored. He asks if the spirit has seen any magical artifacts with significant power in the area. Instead of answering, the ghost lets out a string of incoherent wails, its frustration and confusion growing. It flails its arms one last time before, seemingly overwhelmed by something far worse than Deculein. It turns and flees at an incredible speed. Deculein watches the ghost disappear into the distance, his brow furrowing slightly in confusion. He can't help but wonder what was so wrong with that creature. It couldn't even scare him, let alone disturb him. Then, with a slight shrug, he dismisses the strange encounter and resumes his search. It doesn't take long before his eyes settle on exactly what he's been looking for. Right in front of him lies a piece of wood, glowing with a rich, golden light. The light pulses almost alive, like sunlight trapped within the very grain of the wood. It's an ethereal glow that feels otherworldly, almost magical. Without hesitation, Deculein picks it up, and the moment his fingers close around it, a system notification appears in front of him. The description reveals that this is a purified mana tree fragment, struck by lightning. The wood is filled with an immense amount of mana, naturally refined by the power of the lightning itself. It's categorized as special wood, a material with extraordinary properties. Deculein reads the description, a small smirk forming on his lips. Just as I expected, this is exactly the kind of material needed. He grips the mana wood, and his eyes shine with sharp calculation. This is a turning point. Deculein reflects on his time since arriving in this world. He has pushed himself, trained tirelessly, and carried out numerous studies. Yet, despite his hard work, the limitations of this body have held him back. Too many failures have stacked up, and it frustrates him more than he admits. But now, holding this fragment, everything is about to change. This is the material he's been waiting for, the key to unlocking more power. Deculein's focus sharpens as he examines the fragment, his thoughts racing with possibilities. He can use it to craft a high-quality magic wand, something that will significantly enhance his strength. This simple piece of wood holds more potential than he could have hoped for. His lips curl slightly as he stares at them, almost in awe of the way such a small object can bring about such a monumental shift in his plans. The wood is even better than he had imagined. Time passes swiftly, and soon morning arrives. After a night of rest, the noble families gather once more at the conference table to continue their unfinished discussions. This time, however, the atmosphere feels far heavier, thick with tension, like a stretched rope that's about to snap. Bedin slams his fist on the table, his face twisted with fury. He argues, his voice rising with each word, insisting that the Scarletborn carry the blood of demons, and therefore they must be demons themselves. Deculein, however, remains calm and unaffected by the outburst. He counters quickly, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. He mocks the assertion, comparing it to adding salt to water and calling it salt. The heated exchange between Deculein and Bedin leaves the room in shock. The other attendees exchange looks, uncertainty written on their faces. Whispers ripple through the room like a swarm of disturbed bees. Some wonder if Deculein is siding with the enemy. Others consider the possibility that he's playing a clever game, luring the Scarletborn into revealing themselves. Across the table, Jiltheon watches with furrowed brows, his sharp eyes glinting like a drawn sword. He scoffs coldly, wondering what game Deculein is playing. What exactly is he trying to achieve? Meanwhile, Sylvia is sitting quietly, deep in thought. She knows that not only her father but everyone else in the room believes Deculein must have a deeper motive for appearing to side with the enemy. But Sylvia is different. The words Deculein spoke the night before still echo in her mind, ringing in her ears like an unshakable melody. In that moment, she believes he's simply stating the obvious truth. The others may be blinded by their own agendas, but she sees it clearly. The argument escalates, and that's when Destined, the Grand Elder of Birch, finally steps in. His voice cuts through the heated exchange like a blade, commanding silence and attention. He declares firmly that no formal conclusion can be reached under such divided opinions. The issue of the Scarletorn will be postponed until tomorrow's agenda. For now, he insists they must move on to other matters. The debates surrounding the Scarletorn come to an end, and the remaining matters are settled swiftly. The atmosphere lightens, and the tension that had once filled the room begins to dissipate. The following discussions flow smoothly, and within only a few days the conference comes to a close. One by one, the attendees make their way out of the meeting hall. The sound of their footsteps echoes through the now silent chamber, fading as they leave. The once bustling hall now feels strangely empty, with only the echoes of past discussions lingering in the air. Betting, the head of House Bedin, has failed to secure the upper hand in the debate. His frustration boils over into a childish outburst. In a fit of anger, he storms past Deculein, deliberately shoving his shoulder into him. It's an act of petty vengeance, a desperate attempt to regain some form of control. Deculein watches, unimpressed, his brow furrowing slightly at the immaturity on display. He can't help but think how much more productive he could have been had he not wasted time on such trivial behavior. Bedin's inability to rise above his emotions only makes him more pitiful in Deculein's eyes. The next day, Deculein walks through the Birch shopping district with his assistant. The air around them is thick with the scent of aged wood and the power of concentrated mana, giving the place an almost mystical feel. They enter a store filled with magical tools, where the shelves are lined with artifacts, each imbued with its own magic. In his hand, Deculein is holding a handful of gleaming gems, their surfaces catching the light, glowing like stars. He watches them closely, but his thoughts are elsewhere. His mind races with the need to craft a new wand before returning to the academy. The task isn't simple, and he finds himself struggling to choose the right material. He's never crafted a wand before, and it is making the choice difficult. Just then, Alan notices someone walking in. He jumps, excitement clear on his face. Deculein raises an eyebrow, curious about what has gotten Alan so worked up. His usual calm expression gives way to a brief moment of surprise, though he quickly regains his composure. Alan, practically glowing with happiness, points toward the newcomer. His voice practically bubbles over with gratitude. The person who ensured his safe arrival is standing right there. Deculein, caught off guard, for a split second finally focuses on the woman Alan is referring to. Lilia, the deputy director of the security bureau. She steps into the room with a gentle smile, her presence calm and confident, though there's a slight surprise in her eyes as she notices Deculein. After a brief exchange, the three of them decide to head to a nearby restaurant to continue their conversation. Deculein sees it as the right gesture, a way to express his thanks to Lilia for making sure Alan made it there safely. Once seated, Lilia continues to smile warmly, thanking Deculein for the meal. However, her demeanor shifts slightly as she clears her throat and mentions that she needs to ask some more questions to wrap up the investigation. Deculein remains composed, never breaking his calm facade. The question is direct. She wants to know exactly what happened to his escort Varen. Deculein explains coolly that Varen was killed during an enemy ambush. There were two outcomes: either the knights guarding the mages perished or managed to escape. Either way, Deculein knew there was nothing more that could have been done. The situation was grim, but it was out of their hands. Lilia listens and nods in acknowledgement. The servers continue to bring out dish after dish, filling the table with fragrant food, but only Alan shows any real enthusiasm. His eyes light up with delight at the sight of the meal, eager to dig in. Meanwhile, Lilia keeps a careful watch on Deculein, noting his composed expression. Suspicion begins to creep into her thoughts. Something doesn't sit right. This isn't what I heard. Her mind drifts back to a recent conversation with Lockhart, and the weight of the memory presses down on her. Not long ago, by direct order from the royal family, the Imperial Security Bureau had decided to transfer Lockhart to Recordac, the most notorious prison in the Empire. It was a sentence that couldn't be avoided. Lockhart, a man who had slaughtered innocent mages without a single ounce of remorse, was finally being held accountable. The memory of her time with him in the interrogation room resurfaces, where she sat with her arms crossed, her patience wearing thin. Lockhart remained silent, his eyes clouded with thoughts as though he were piecing together a puzzle in his mind. With a quiet determination, Lilia pressed him for an answer, though he refused to speak. She had reached the point where she couldn't tolerate his silence any longer, ready to force him into revealing his intentions. Without warning, she threw a statement at him that made his eyes flicker with surprise. She had commanded him to activate his power, her voice carrying the weight of authority. At that moment, something in Lockhart shifted, and a grin spread across his face. A surge of energy pulsed through the room, instantly disabling all the recording devices. The space now belonged to them, a private realm where no one else could listen or interfere. Lilia's fury boiled over. She slammed her hand on the table, her eyes burning with rage. Every word she uttered was laced with frustration. How many times had she warned him not to cause trouble? Yet here he was, making everything worse, and for what? His reckless actions were why their people were seen as nothing but demons in the eyes of others. Lockhart, of course, didn't respond. He simply smiled, his silence mocking her. Lilia clenched her jaw, her anger simmering just beneath the surface. If not for the blood running through his veins, she would have killed him long ago. Her thoughts darken. If this truth ever comes to light, not just him but she too would face the wrath of the noble houses. Their world would collapse and the consequences would be far-reaching. Lockhart chuckles darkly. He asks Lilia if she really believes they can escape this empire. She replies, confident in her stance. She thinks they can. As long as they keep their racial secret hidden, no one will be able to stop them. But Lockhart says that they were born with the power of demons, and that the only thing the empire fears is that very power. Lilia cuts him off sharply, dismissing his words. Shut up, she thinks. The Scarletorn clan isn't the only one with extraordinary abilities. Lilia raises her finger, clearly annoyed, and asks Lockhart why he attacked Deculein when they were already keeping an eye on the Yukline. Lockhart, looking surprised, asks if she plans to kill him. Lilia calmly replies that they're just keeping watch for now. But if Deculein continues his behavior, she doesn't see any reason why they shouldn't take action. Lockhart quickly tells her to not even think about it, insisting that Deculein is a true noble and that there's no need to kill him. Lilia snaps, her disbelief evident as she thinks Lockhart has completely lost his mind. She questions how he can still defend Deculein, calling him a fool. She argues that Deculein is guilty of countless crimes, and Lockhart is too blind to see that. In the midst of this, Lockhart's thoughts drift to a conversation he once had with Deculein in a cemetery. He remembers the elegance with which Deculein had declared that the Scarletorn were humans and not devils, and the confidence in his gaze. Lockhart believes that if there were more nobles like Deculein, they could all live together in harmony, without the constant fighting and hatred. Lockhart tells Lilia that Deculein didn't kill him, even though he knew Lockhart was a Scarletorn. Lilia laughs, mocking his Narveti, and reminds him that Deculein's Yukline ancestors were responsible for the oppression and genocide of the Scarletorn. Lockhart, however, doesn't agree with her view. He believes that if they treat Deculein like his ancestors, just because of the blood he carries, they would be no better than those who claim the Scarletorn are devils. In the end, they would become what they hate. Lilia, clearly frustrated, shouts at Lockhart, telling him not to act all smart with her. Lockhart doesn't back down, asking how much longer she thinks she can keep her origins hidden and maintain her position. Lilia shrugs, speaking in a calm voice, stating that she has no need to hide who she is. There's no way to distinguish a Scarletorn from an ordinary person just by looking at them, she says, or even by bloodline. Lockhart scoffs, questioning there is nothing they can't eat, hinting at the supposed weakness of their bloodline. Lilia clicks her tongue, annoyed by his ignorance, and calls him an idiot. She simply states that she has no reason to ever touch that stuff. Lilia then casually mentions that the health of the current emperor is failing, and that it won't be long before someone else takes his place. She says that they just need to wait and see how the new ruler will treat the Scarletorn clan before making their next move. Until then, she advises that it's best to stay quiet and wait. Then, she looks at Lockhart with a cold, mocking smirk on her lips and orders him to just sit tight in prison like a good boy, clearly seeing him as nothing more than a nuisance. Back in the present, Lilia continues to observe Deculein with sharp, calculating eyes, never breaking her gaze. She can't understand how someone like him possibly be considered a true noble. To her, he's no different from anyone else. The feeling of superiority in her expression is almost palpable, but it's hard to take her seriously when her thinking is so narrow. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps approaching catches Lilia's attention. She turns to see a man stumbling toward them, the stench of alcohol so strong it fills the air. Lilia scrunches her nose in disgust and instinctively covers her face with her hand to block out the overwhelming smell. She clearly has no patience for such filth. Deculein speaks up, addressing the man with an icy tone, asking what he wants, making it clear that he has nothing to say to him. The man is Helm, the same one who Deculein humiliated at the banquet. Helm had been furious but powerless at the time, and now, it seems he has returned to settle the score. Helm sneers arrogantly, his words dripping with venom. He taunts Deculein, saying that he has a few things he'd love to hear from him. He claims there's something dark lurking in Deculein's soul, hiding at the kind of twisted pleasure he takes from trying to break someone like him. It's clear that Helm is a coward, hiding behind his arrogance to make up for the power he lacks. Meanwhile, in the Freeham Knights' headquarters, Julia sits frozen at her desk, unable to believe what she has just heard. She demands the captain repeat what he just said. The captain hesitates, knowing that the news he must deliver is unbearable. He finally speaks the painful truth. Varen has fallen in the line of duty. The words strike Julia like a lightning bolt, shattering her composure. She is momentarily speechless, overwhelmed by the devastating news. However, after a brief pause, Julia stands up with a voice that trembles but remains firm. She orders her subordinates to prepare, stating that she wants a full explanation from Deculein the moment he returns. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's goal is 1,500 likes. Comment next part down below for the next part. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially and watch videos before public release. I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.